Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, getting up, getting after it, and feeling fantastic on this beautiful Sunday morning. For a lot of you folks, it is a beautiful Sunday morning as a cold front has moved through. And a lot of the areas that were experiencing some pretty bad weather yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening, even some reports of some tornadoes in southern New England are waking up to a totally different air mass this morning, almost like an early fall preview out there. Some temperatures in the 50s, even some 40s for some higher elevations. We'll talk about that in this video. We'll also talk about how areas do have another chance for strong to severe storms. But I can tell you, for highly populated areas as far as severe thunderstorm chances today, I would say they're lower definitely compared to the last couple of days. We're definitely going to have some pretty active weather across the northern plains though, and we'll break that down. And there is going to be a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5 chance. Now, this could upgrade in the later updates here from the Storm Prediction Center, but there is going to be a chance for some strong to severe storms for areas of the deep south, even the Mississippi Valley into the southeast, all the way down to North Florida. And we'll break down all that in this video like we always do, and keep you guys aware of what could potentially unfold for today. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Stay tuned for tonight. We're going to talk about what could potentially unfold as we, round off July, head into August. Thank goodness. I'm glad summer is just moving right along. I know people say don't rush all the seasons, don't rush summer. I'm not rushing it. I got my cup full of summer, and I'm ready to move on to the best time of the year to me, in my opinion, which is September through the end of the year. But I'm going to try to make the most out of it, as hot as it is for a lot of folks out there. But what I was saying was, we're going to take a look maybe the first 7 to 10 days of August, what we're seeing, anything popping off in the tropics, anything going on. Is people going to cool down? People going to continue to be very hot? We'll talk about that in this evening's video. Stay tuned for that. And with that being said, you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over? As always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it and others can do so too. So let's get rolling this morning. Water vapor loop. Guys, I updated my little widget, but she is still just not wanting to work. So I just closed it down. I'm not going to be able to draw on the map this morning, which always tears my nerves up. It kind of disrupts my flow because I love drawing on this map for you guys just to explain what's going on. But I'm going to try to do it anyways without drawing on it. If you notice the moisture right in this area, and if you don't know what we're looking at, it's called a water vapor loop. The whiter colors, the more whiter the colors are on this, and I know everywhere is very dull, but the more whiter the colors is, in general, the more water that is in the atmosphere, basically the more moist the atmosphere is. Now, that doesn't make sense because out in the southwest it's very dry, but in general, just think of this as the flow. Okay, if you notice, it's kind of dull, a little bit more grayed out, almost black in certain areas of the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes region, and also the Northeast. This does symbolize moisture in all levels of the atmosphere. So, it's not just showing low level drier, upper level drier, things like that, all levels. So we got a flow surging in, surging in from the southwest, moving north and northeast. Then it comes up here, and then it rounds off, and then it heads back southeast out to northwest. We call this right here a northwest flow. And then it kind of rounds off here, and then you have basically the boundary between the ridge and troughing, which is our cold front that's affecting the Great Lakes region, the northeast, even as far south as the mid-Atlantic. So anybody along this boundary and south, including this entire region right into here and down here where you have an anticyclonic flow around this ridge of high pressure, you have a chance for showers and storms. So that's going to be the case for today, pretty much in this entire area, this entire region right in here. I hate that I can't draw, and this is tearing my nerves up, guys. But that's what's going on. So we keep rolling here, and part of that's my fault. Sometimes I throw these videos together so fast, I'm not going to lie, that I forget to test run it. So that's on me. So I do apologize for just throwing around the mouse everywhere on the map. I know that's not professional, but when are we ever super professional on this channel? So a radar on what's going on. The radar actually shows it better, in my opinion. You see the moisture riding in north, and then it kind of goes zonal, meaning west to east here in Montana, and then it begins to dip back southeast in the Dakotas. And then any kind of little spots of moisture you have into here, across the middle of the country is moving in from the northwest to the southeast. We call this northwest flow. And then it comes down here, and, it just sort of, I wouldn't say it gets zonal, but the northwest flow definitely changes up a bit down here, but in general, still a flow out the northwest. If you look here, this is really the eyesore here and up here where we still got some strong to severe storms from overnight still kind of rumbling through North Dakota. We do have a little bit of a low pressure off the coast of the Carolinas, and this is the low pressure that's been plaguing the weather over the last couple of days across the Carolinas and Georgia earlier this last week, and Florida and things like that. I would not be surprised one bit if, as this, well, it already is, the center of this very weak low pressure tries to get its act together as it heads off to the northeast, out into the North Atlantic. And this could be a little sneaky system and all of a sudden become like a tropical depression or something. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. The National Hurricane Center, as of right now, does not mention that possibility, but I would not rule it out completely at all. Storm Prediction Center today, like I said, there's a little slither right here, a little very narrow corridor of a level 1 out of 5, a marginal risk that extends basically all the way from Canada, all the way to the middle of the country, through the Mississippi Valley, all the way to the deep south and areas of the Carolinas and Georgia and North Florida. But the highest risk of severe weather is going to be right into here. We have that slight risk. Might could get an enhanced risk on the next update. I wouldn't be surprised one bit they throw an enhanced risk somewhere inside of this slight risk one bit, but we'll see what happens. We'll break this down pretty extensively, and there is a marginal risk of severe weather down here in the southwest. We'll watch to see how this unfolds, but this actually moves a little bit further north than what we've seen over the last couple days. It's normally just been very tucked in right here in Arizona, but this is actually into California, extreme southeastern California. So we'll see. We could get some stronger storms down here in this region of the country. Tornado risk. There is a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of New England location that extends from eastern Colorado through areas of Wyoming, South Dakota, even a small section of North Dakota, and then into Nebraska, okay? And then the wind threat, a 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, 55 to 60 miles per hour in this yellow area. And then the hail threat, you got the 15% risk in the yellow area of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, and then in the black outline region you have a 10% risk of significant hail, which is 2 inch in diameter or larger. So we could get some big hail with these storms. I think the damaging wind threat could increase also, and like I said, don't be surprised if this upgrades to an enhanced risk somewhere up here. So for my folks that tune in from the northern plains, I appreciate you very much. Chances are you're on the newer side to the channel, because I didn't really talk about this area much up till up until like the last few months or so. So definitely stay tuned. I got you a tab pulled up. We'll talk about that. But watches and warnings. The heat is chilled out now for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. With the troughing settling in, the cold front has moved through. No heat advisories, excessive heat warnings up for this region. But with the cold front has not cleared, which, we don't expect it to clear this part of the country this time of the year. Sometimes it does. At least strong cold fronts that actually influence and affect the atmosphere. It's still going to be hot. You got heat advisories up for the deep south, all of Florida, very hot today. Excessive heat warnings up for the panhandle like Tallahassee. Places like that. Excessive heat warnings up for southern sections and southeastern sections of Kansas also. The heat advisories extend all the way up through Oklahoma, all of eastern Texas, all of Louisiana, pretty much all of Mississippi, and most of Alabama and Arkansas. So let's talk about what could happen today. Broad look at what can unfold. We'll get this in motion. If you look at this little area, watch as the HRRR model has this trying to develop. But really, don't focus too much on this. This isn't really going to affect our weather at all, just affect the fishes out there. But check out how these storms get going from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and then the Carolinas. And then you got the pop-up storm activity in Florida. And then they move, from the northwest to the southeast, which we would expect with the pattern going on out here and how the jet is and the ridge is out west and the trough is to the east. This makes sense, and of course the atmosphere is responding to the current out there aloft. So we got a lot of shower and storm activity. I think that's going to form in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. More so just kind of a swooshing of the atmosphere, meaning these storms will form and then move through, and I don't expect much action to form behind it. So basically what I'm saying is, you could get one round of storms, and I think that'll be it. But look at this. Look at the HRRR model trying to develop this as this heads well off the coast of the eastern U.S. So it'll be interesting to see what that does. The HRRR model is not a good model for the tropics. I definitely don't recommend it. It struggles enough trying to figure out where it's gonna storm each and every day. But it is interesting to see what that little coastal low is going to do as it heads off out into the North Atlantic. My folks in the deep south, I think some storms could develop as early as lunchtime in northern Mississippi, maybe southern sections of Tennessee. Don't expect too much in the way of storm action in Tennessee because a little bit more stable air is worked in. You start to move a little bit further south. You get into close to Meridian. You start to maybe Jackson. Jackson has a small chance for some storms, but you start to get to about 4 or 5 p.m. These storms start to march into the southern half of Mississippi. It's not very scattered, but I think it has a chance to be a little bit more widespread than this. But we'll see. Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, down to Montgomery. These make it all the way down to Gulfport, Mobile, all the way down to the Panhandle of Florida eventually. I think the further south you are in this area, the later the storms come, if that makes sense. So I think they might get going here in kind of the northern sections of Mississippi, Alabama, maybe even Georgia, earlier in the afternoon. By the time you get the late afternoon, the evening time frame winding down for the night, I think it could be maybe a stormy evening for the Gulf Coast region of Mississippi, Alabama, the Panhandle, Florida. These storms could produce some gusty winds, maybe some small hail, tornado threat very, very low, but as always, not non-existent. Florida. Typical kind of Florida storm pop-ups today. You're not really being affected by this kind of northwest flow. This is honestly just just your average, very humid, unstable conditions that builds each and every late morning and afternoon in Florida. So these pop up. Really, anybody in Florida could get a pop up afternoon shower, storm, or downpour. There's typical stuff, but as we get into the evening, watch out, extreme northern areas of Florida. Late evening, maybe even, you could get some storm action even this afternoon, but late evening, I'd watch out for some big storms that could roll through. Watch out Jacksonville and just northern sections of Florida as we get into the late overnight hours. The Carolinas today, I think, could be stormy, especially for Georgia and South Carolina. I think we could get some storms in the mountains of North Carolina again early this afternoon, and I think we could get some storms around the Charlotte area, but I'll stop it here. It's around 5 p.m. Eastern time. Some storms ongoing in the upstate of South Carolina, even some storms popping off near the Wilmington area, points north. And these will just kind of cluster up and just kind of move and rumble southeast from the northwest, and Columbia, PD of South Carolina, central Georgia could get some big storms. And as we get into about the 8, 9, 10 p.m. time frame, it shows these really clustering up and becoming a more intense line of storms as we get into the late evening hours. And these could affect Savannah and then the low country of South Carolina, maybe later tonight. So we'll see how this develops. The HRRR model likes a pretty nasty line of storms developing here in southeast Georgia, low country of South Carolina. You kind of look at the latest HRRR model on how it likes this. And so we're the same thing, shows a pretty potent line of storms developing and kind of the same action. So there's not a whole lot of changing from model to model. If you look at the NAM, kind of the same thing. It really likes an area of storms organizing in the upstate of South Carolina and then moving into the Midlands. And not a whole lot different. It does show a little bit more storm action in northern North Carolina. We'll see what happens. My folks up in the Northeast, man, y'all are living the dream. Waking up to 50s. In fact, this is about 30 minutes old, so we'll see what it looks like right now, if this will come in for us. And it looks like it's warming up a little bit out there now, but man, it's nice at this hour. What is it? 7:45 a.m. Y'all are feeling it. Even some 50s as far south as northern PA, the Finger Lakes region. A lot of areas waking up to some 50s, low 60s, and Massachusetts. Southern New England can get very humid. I worked with a guy, that lived in, I think, Connecticut, and he said that it gets extremely humid sometimes, and in summer. So, anytime you can get an air mass like this, it's nice. And not only this, you look at the dew points, which is really a great indicator on how much moisture is in the atmosphere. It's the best way to look at it. And dew points in the 50s. So even if it's 60 degrees, which, isn't that chilly, but your dew points are in the low 50s, that is a a nice breath of fresh air. I would love to have that here in South Carolina. So you're definitely waking up to a very kind of early fall-like morning, but of course, everybody's definition for weather for early fall is different. But weather today up here in the Northeast, now you could get some pop-up showers and even some storms. They're very possible. I would call these more so cold core storms. I wouldn't be surprised, you get some action here in Northeast Ohio, Western PA. Some of these could produce some small hail. But I don't think there's anything to be worried about today. But some pop-up downpours, even some downpours or some storms that could produce a little bit of hail is possible in northern Ohio into western PA. And then eventually could get some showers later this evening into the Finger Lakes region in New York State. And then, like I said, I would bet this area right in here that has the best chance for just some showers. So even though it's going to be a nice day for most of this area, you cannot completely rule out some rain, but I don't think it's going to be very widespread. Up here in western Maine, also some showers are possible. South central U.S., pretty quiet. I'm going to zoom into Kansas and Missouri here in a second. The monsoonal moisture moving that has that anticyclonic flow out there to the west, that clockwise flow. Is affecting areas of Colorado and New Mexico. But we're going to compare two different models here as basically this action rounds this ridge. It's set this high pressure that's set up right over here, and it's basically rounding it like this, and that's why all this moisture comes in from the north like this across Missouri as we're waking up tomorrow morning. But to zoom in on Kansas and Missouri is kind of a weird state. Especially Missouri has been a weird state where the models have been a notorious, just terrible. It really had. I saw a comment for somebody who lives in St. Louis in the comments, and you can tell that it is frustrating. It's frustrating when you're calling for storms and you like a good summer storm. I mean, I can count on one hand how many storms we've gotten here in my neck of the woods here in South Carolina. And South Carolina is notorious for just summer pop-ups, but it just nothing really this summer. We've gotten some good rains, just not a lot of storms. So, but we keep going here. In the HRRR model, we get into early this afternoon, mid-afternoon, late afternoon, and not a whole lot shows up based off the HRRR model. Okay, we get some action that moves in from the north that might affect areas of the northeast portion of the state sometime tomorrow morning, but that's it. Now you look at the you look at the NAM for this region, right? And the NAM, and we'll back it up here. Okay, the NAM does follow more so what the Storm Prediction Center says. The NAM brings some storms into like eastern and northeastern Kansas as early to mid-afternoon. We see some storm action that moves through, some that will probably reach severe limits. And even 7 p.m. you got some storms kind of moving through areas of central to eastern Kansas. Watch out, Kansas City sometime this afternoon. You could get some storm action based off the NAM. I would honestly believe the NAM with this, to be completely honest with you, over the HRRR model, which is a model that I tend to favor a little bit more. But it gets a lot of criticism, though, out there in the weather world. But it's hit. When it hits, it hits. When it misses, man, it misses. But, you look at Missouri, same thing. The HRRR model ain't showing much. It does show some big storms moving in as we're waking up tomorrow morning from northern and central Missouri. So we'll watch to see how that unfolds. Shows a big complex of showers and storms. But like I said, you look at the NAM, it definitely is different for Missouri. You'll back it up a little bit. It shows some storms moving through Kansas City. Then some storms even getting closer to Springfield area as we get into this evening. So we'll see what happens. Even shows some storms making it into the Fayetteville, Arkansas region. So, you guys could get some storms later this evening. So just always remember, these models are not dead on. They're not a conclusion. They're just guidance to just try to help us figure out where the storms are going to form with the setup that we have atmospheric wise, if that makes any sense. We know what players is out there for the most part, but what are these models going to show us and what they think is going to develop? So another great example of what this cold front is doing for the Great Lakes region. My guy Steven up here and all my folks that watch, from the UP in Michigan, it is beautiful. If you consider this beautiful, I do. You're waking up to the 50s, maybe some upper 40s, even northern Maine. I mean, 50s. There's definitely a tight gradient. You go down to Grand Rapids, you're only waking up to the 60s. You go an hour or so north, you're in the 50s. There's a little cold pool of air right here in Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, where you're in the mid 40s. And then downright chilly in northern and northeast areas of Minnesota, waking up to the 40s. So, man, I like seeing it. Even when it ain't in my neck of the woods, it gets me excited for fall. So, definitely an area of the country I would love to visit one day. I talk to my wife about it all the time, and one of these days I'll get up there. The weather in this area, pretty calm, obviously, where you do have kind of the more stable air mass in place with drier air. But, you could get some showers that move over Lake Superior into the UP and Michigan later tonight. But other than that, very quiet for this area. Now, I'm not deliberately skipping this. I'm about to talk about this area right in here. In fact, we're going to do it now. So the Northern Plains, this is going to be the most active area today, I think, weather-wise. Anywhere from Billings down to Cheyenne, maybe even Denver, Rapid City, Bismarck. I know those are kind of household names in this area of the country. You guys have a pretty decent chance. Scottsbluff, you guys have a pretty decent chance to see some strong to severe storms. Not everybody's going to get hit. But, as we're getting into this afternoon, here comes the moisture starting to develop. Okay, I think pop-up showers and storms are possible in southern Wyoming and definitely become much more widespread in western Wyoming, southern Wyoming, and then they become strong to severe as you get, here in southeast Wyoming where storms like to definitely rage a lot. And then these storms begin to move into western Nebraska, southwest areas of South Dakota. But, look at this very strong storm right up here tucked in on the far northeast corner of Montana. These could pack a punch, and you keep these rolling. You got multiple little areas to watch, right? You got this area right here in northern Montana, this area in southeast Montana, this one lone powerful storm showing up here in western areas of North Dakota. You got more so this line of storms rumbling through here in western Nebraska. These could be producing damaging winds and very large hail. Okay, so by the time we get to about 9 p.m., you still got this one lone cell, and this area of storm is looking pretty powerful. So, I'd watch out if you're in anywhere in western Nebraska. I know it's not a highly populated area or by any means, but Alliance, you guys watch out. Was that Chadron, Hay Springs, Rushville, Gordon, basically that entire area. It does show a pretty nasty line of storms, and it seems like you guys in Nebraska get a pretty intense line of storms every night, at least the models. I don't know if it's been verifying well. You guys let me know. I feel like Nebraska is one state where, and maybe the Dakotas, but Nebraska is one state where I don't hear a lot of people from, so I don't know how many people's viewing from Nebraska, but these storms could pack a punch overnight. You guys could get some nasty storms in western South Dakota overnight tonight, late evening overnight. And Montana, you guys have the slight risk for a reason, but there'll be certain areas that just don't even get a drop of rain. So if you're up in Montana, I would argue that if you're from Billings up north to the north, Miles City, I'm just looking at areas on my Google Maps right here. There's not a whole lot of towns to mention. Heck, even all the way up to just the northern portions of Montana have that slight risk. I think you guys could see some big storms up here today. So please be careful. Even getting into the overnight hours, it looks pretty active pretty much across all of the northern plains. Okay, so NAM pretty much shows a similar scenario. Not much different. It looks like it fires everything up a lot later, I would say, but same general flow. Storms really fire up this evening, last throughout the overnight hours and around that ridge as they move into Nebraska and the Dakotas. So updraft helicity swath based off the HRRR model does show some rotating storms out there, especially this area of storms in northern Nebraska, South Dakota. But listen, just know that there's a 2% risk in this entire region. Any of these storms, I guarantee you're going to get a few tornado warnings in this region today. So please heed your warnings, be prepared of what could potentially unfold for today. The western U.S., just that, that clockwise flow around this high pressure. You'll get all this rain that develops. Could be a rainy day. If you're, doing any hiking in the Rockies or anything like that, northern and central areas of New Mexico, widespread showers and storms. even into areas of Utah, especially the southern half of Utah, northern half of New Mexico. But I mean, these storms right down here in and around the Phoenix area, points south and Tucson. Watch out down here, my folks down here in southern Arizona. You guys could get some bigger storms today, certainly. Watch out, and these eventually could make their way, kind of creep their way into extreme southern areas of California, where you guys typically don't get a whole lot of rain, but you can get some rain maybe into the late evening hours, overnight hours tonight. So eastern U.S., beautiful weather, 60s and 70s for highs in the Northeast. Almost everybody, it's going to even be nice in southern New England, 70s. Warms as you start to get a little bit further south, but even areas where it's only getting into the 80s down here in the mid-Atlantic, lower humidity for the most part will make it feel comfortable today. Lower humidity down to the Ohio Valley, 80s and 70s. 70s for the Great Lakes region, beautiful, almost really late summer, early fall-like day, but you can see the gradient between nice weather and then miserably hot weather for the deep south, south central U.S., 90s, 100-degree temperatures, brutally hot today. Western U.S., running out of steam. Western U.S., the Northwest, a tick cooler than average, but the high plains very hot all the way up into Montana. 90s, upper 90s is possible. 90s across all of the high plains. Very hot corridor right here today, where you guys will warm well into the 90s. In certain areas will probably hit 100, 101 degrees, and then just typical very hot weather in the desert Southwest. That's all I got, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned for tonight. We'll kind of talk about what it looks like going forward and keep you guys aware of what's going on. God bless. Have a great Sunday.